Hello and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Nazia Iqbal and here's a look at the stories for the day. The government on Wednesday slashed the windfall tax on domestically produced crude oil within 3 weeks after imposing it. It also reduced the levy on exports of diesel and aviation fuel. So today, we try to find answers to two questions. What may have prompted the government to do this quick turnabout, and who all will benefit from this move?
The shares of Indian oil producers and refiners rallied in unison on Wednesday morning as the government move lifted their spirits. And what was the move? The government slashed windfall taxes on fuel exports and local crude oil sales that were imposed only 20 days ago on July 1st. The open-ended levies are reviewed every fortnight. To target profits made from a spike in oil prices after the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, India had imposed windfall tax in the form of a cess of 23,250 rupees per ton or $40 a barrel on domestic crude production. Now this has been slashed by 27% to 17,000 rupees a ton, benefiting oil producers like state-owned ONGC and Oil India and Vedanta. Shares of these three companies closed between 3.7% and 5.9% higher on Wednesday. Similarly, the government reduced the windfall tax on diesel and jet fuel exports by 2 rupees a litre from 13 rupees and 6 rupees respectively. The levy of 6 rupees a litre on petrol exports has been scrapped completely. Reliance Industries jumped 2.5%, while state-owned Mangalore Refinery and Petrochemicals hit upper circuit of 5%, and Chennai Petroleum Corporation closed nearly 9% higher on Wednesday. The levies came as oil refiners reaped major profits by boosting fuel exports to deficit regions such as Europe, which is now boycotting imports of Russian energy. India's only privately owned refining companies, Russia's Rosneft-backed Nayara Energy and Reliance Industries, account for 80 to 85% of the country's overall petrol and diesel exports, according to consultancy firm FGE. The government also removed the levies on exports from refineries located in special economic zones, benefiting Reliance as the Mukesh Ambani-led company runs India's only export-focused refining unit in Gujarat's Jamnagar. Global crude oil benchmark Brent has slumped since the first week of June when it was above $120 a barrel on fears of a potential global recession. Returns from processing petrol and diesel in Asia have also plunged in the recent weeks. News agency PTI said that the windfall levy scooped out 40% of the oil producers' earnings. On top of it, they also paid royalty and cess. Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj had said the government would withdraw the windfall tax if global prices of crude oil fall as much as $40 a barrel from around $112 levels. But Brent is currently trading at $105 a barrel after rebounding nearly 10% over the past week. Analysts at Morgan Stanley on Wednesday said that steady improvement in local fuel availability, stability in oil prices, and more normalized global fuel margins will help in further reducing windfall taxes under fortnightly review. Reliance, Oil India, and ONGC will see reduction in overhang, and equity valuations should start pricing in high sustainable energy margins as government action provides clarity on the path ahead, they added.
The number of reports saying that the globally there would be recession, or US they're now saying 30% chance of a recession. Europe is going into a recession because of the war as such, and high energy prices, etc. So those reports have multiplied, leading to the expectation that crude will probably be on the lower side of the spectrum, lower side of the band, probably of 100 to 120 as of now. And somewhat decline in crude prices, which is probably prompting the government. The crack spreads for petrol have very sharply dipped. which is not the case with diesel. Diesel also has declined somewhat. So therefore, a smaller cut in diesel.
Analysts from Kotak Institutional Equities had said that windfall tax on fuel exports were not well thought out and may hamper the investment climate. They said the imposition of taxes on exports of petroleum products goes against the government's historic policy of incentivizing refining, whereas an expert at IIFL Securities told a business news channel that the government has been pragmatic and tried to address the situation as soon as things have come under control. The so-called crack spread, which is the profit that refiners get from turning crude into petrol, diesel and jet fuel, has crashed since the imposition of the windfall taxes. But a sharper drop for petrol explains why the special additional excess duty on the fuel's export has been removed altogether. While recession fears sparked concerns of a slowdown in oil demand, realizations for producers are still remunerative. Therefore, windfall taxes on domestic crude oil production may sustain longer.
सब अच्छी दिख रही हैं यार, कौन सी खरीदूं? ये तो वही बात हुई, 4000 शेयर्स लिस्टेड है, कौन सा लूं? वो तो सबसे आसान है। तुझे 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा पर है 4000 स्टॉक्स की रिसर्च, टेक्निकल टूल्स और इन्वेस्टमेंट आइडियाज। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है, investing made easy and rewarding with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
About 176 kilometers off the west coast of Mumbai, ONGC men are busy retrieving oil and natural gas from one of the country's largest oil fields, called Mumbai High Field. While on shore, as the monsoon is in full swing, Mumbai's civic body men are working overtime to retrieve rainwater from city roads and markets. It has become an annual affair, giving sleepless nights to the municipality. Other cities are no different. A brief spell of rain brings them to a standstill. So why does a good spell of rain bring misery to urban areas rather than joy? Let's find out. Over the years, rains have made Delhi's Minto Road underpass, Mumbai's Gandhi Market near the King Circle, and Chennai's northern suburbs quite famous. Mumbai won't forget the 2005 flood anytime soon, as over 1,000 people had lost their lives. Nearly 2 decades later, the maximum city still comes to a grinding halt when it rains. Earlier this month, parts of the city were inundated in waist-deep water. And it is not just India's financial capital. Majority of urban areas lack effective storm water drainage. Add to that unplanned development, encroachment of natural drainage corridors, and climate change, and it becomes a perfect storm. And the economic impact of flooding is also damaging. Mumbai lost 14,000 crore rupees to floods due to heavy rainfall between 2005 and 2015. The Brihan Mumbai Stormwater Disposal System, or BRIMSTOWAT, project to overhaul the city's old stormwater drainage system was proposed after the 1985 floods. However, work finally started after the 2005 deluge. The project, which included building 8 major pumping stations, was yet to be completed as of January this year. Till that point, only 6 pumping stations had been built. The BRIMSTOWAT project was to cost 616.30 crore rupees when it was proposed in 1991. It was meant to be completed in 12 years. As of April 2021, 2,439.35 crore rupees had been spent on it, and an additional investment of 2,700 crore rupees was still needed. Let's move on to the national capital. Delhi's first drainage master plan was prepared in 1976. Even in 2022, the capital is still operating on the same plan. The Delhi government has been trying to put in place a new plan for years now. In December last year, the state government decided to engage consultants to solve the problem after finding that the plan prepared by IIT Delhi had no actionable points. The Public Works Department was supposed to start the tendering process for consultants by January and have them engaged by March. However, as of July this year, there was no indication that a consultancy had been appointed. Even if the PWD had stuck to its original time frame, a national daily had said that the drainage master plan would be prepared only by March 2023. Delhi's drainage system would be redeveloped by 2025. In October last year, a Controller and Auditor General report had highlighted that the Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagar Palike or BBMP had not removed 714 encroachments out of the 2,626 identified near water bodies. Of the 23 significant encroachments, 16 were not even on BBMP's list. Also, the IT capital's stormwater drains were not directly connected to its water bodies. In some places, the runoff water was flowing into constructed deviation canals. CAG found that this increased the chances of flash floods. Storm drains in many Indian cities were designed for a rainfall intensity of 12 to 20 mm per hour, which is insufficient for the current rainfall standards. They will have to be replaced or retrofitted. This will require funding. Managing waterlogging falls to the states and UTs and is one of the functions of their urban local bodies. An RBI analysis of 2017-18 data of 221 municipal bodies across India found that nearly half of the bodies were under high fiscal stress, given their limited ability to raise own revenues. Another recent central bank study found that 70% of surveyed urban local bodies had seen a worsening in revenues and an increase in expenditure due to the pandemic. Thus, there is a question mark on how quickly India can build up to its urban stormwater infrastructure. But some progress has been made. Till April this year, under the Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, states and union territories had taken up 799 projects worth 2,952 crore rupees for the elimination of 3,770 waterlogging points. And out of that, till April, 633 projects worth 1,180 crore rupees had been completed, which had resulted in the elimination of 2,300 waterlogging points.
That you can't manage what you can't measure. So now when we look at Indian cities, there is no proper mapping of underground drains, right? So all urban local bodies, need to have a contour map and drainage map of their city, which will tell them about the existing situation and where the new drainage needs to come up, based on land contours that aid the natural flow of water. That's one. The second is we need to manage what we have. And that means first strengthening operations and management systems. So monitoring the drain health. And we have many sort of companies and new technology which can help with that. Fluid robotics, for example, which looks at drain health, which looks at, where the water is flowing, quantities and all of that. The final thing is, urban planning and management. So where we build matters. Master plans and development control regulations need to take into account carrying capacities of the infrastructure and ensure proper infrastructure provisioning in new development areas, especially in the peripheries of cities. And also we need to look at natural solutions, nature-based solutions and sponge city concepts. So 75% of India's 2050 infrastructure is yet to be built, and how we build it will make the difference between climate vulnerability and climate resilience.
A June 2020 Ministry of Earth Sciences Climate Change Assessment report had noted how the increased frequencies of heavy rainfall had enhanced flood risk all over India, particularly in urban areas. This requires an urgent fix. Also, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs should start maintaining data on economic loss and deaths due to waterlogging to help us assess the overall damage.
यार
मत पूछ यार, फिर से स्टॉक्स में फंस गया।
तो स्टॉक्स के साथ बॉन्ड्स, इंश्योरेंस, गोल्ड में बैलेंस कर।
इसमें बहुत तामझाम है।
तुझे 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा है ऑल इन वन अकाउंट। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है। Investing made easy and rewarding with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
After the monsoon miseries, let's move on to markets, which experts say are bracing for winter. Most analysts expect the US economy to enter a recession over the next few months. The impact, they said, will be felt across global financial markets. So which sectors and stocks are investment worthy amid this uncertainty? Here's a quick check on what experts suggest.
Aggressive monetary policy tightening, elevated inflation, weak consumer confidence and geopolitical situation have dented the market sentiment in the first half of calendar year 2022. With the US Federal Reserve likely to get more aggressive in its policy stance, with the latest inflation print coming in over 9%, most experts see the US economy slip into recession by 2022 end. The impact of a recession in the world's largest economy, they feel, will be felt by most global markets over the next few months. With rapidly slowing growth momentum and the US Fed committed to restoring price stability, we expect a mild recession in the US starting Q4 2022. So, are there any stocks and sectors you can invest in at a time when the economy faces recession-related headwinds?
A few sectors perform well in a rising rate scenario, as well as a recessionary trend. However, as investors, we need to identify the sectors which can outperform as well. So, when we talk of BFSI space, which is banking, financial services, and insurance, generally it does well in a rising rate scenario as we witness net interest income as well as net interest margin improving. Though treasury income gets a bit affected due to lower bond prices due to rising yield, overall operating performance is generally better. We are witnessing a healthy credit growth after a long time, and I think this is extremely positive for this space. Again, when we talk of recessionary trend globally, we should remember that India is uniquely placed as one of the fastest growing economies. Therefore, a slowdown in US and Europe could in fact be a blessing in disguise for us. The slowdown will ensure cooling off of commodities and crude, therefore bringing in that relief, much expected relief for most of the sectors. And the sectors which will continue to outperform in a global recessionary trend is defense and defense related, as budgets for defense procurements are rarely axed. Consumer non-discretionary and essential demand will continue to be healthy. IT and pharma is seen as a defensive sector globally during a slowdown. And as far as India is concerned, specialty chemicals is another space where China plus one is playing out well. And in fact, India has become a formidable player.
Those at Credit Suisse Wealth Management recommend buying selectively. As a strategy, they remain defensive in the near term and suggest investors focus on domestic economy facing companies. Jitendra Gohil of Credit Suisse Wealth Management says, our preferred sectors in the near term include healthcare, FMCG, autos, and financials. We still maintain our bearish outlook in the IT and metal sectors. On Thursday, the markets are likely to remain range-bound. Emphasis, PVR, RBL Bank, and SRF are some of the prominent companies that are scheduled to announce their June quarter numbers.
अब क्या किया?
शेयर्स में ट्रेडिंग।
तुम्हें 5 पैसा नहीं पता?
ओए, अब तो सबको पता है। 5 पैसा पर मिलते हैं रिसर्च टूल्स, पोर्टफोलियो एनालिटिक्स और इन्वेस्टमेंट आइडियाज भी। डाउनलोड 5 पैसा नाउ।
अब तो सबको पता है. Investing made easy and reporting with 5 paisa. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
After markets, let's focus on a recent controversy involving a cab aggregator. From lobbying world leaders to circumventing local regulations, Uber indulged in many shady practices in its aggressive bid to spread business. And when The Guardian, under the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists or ICAG, unearthed the dark secrets hidden in its closet, the ride-sharing company blamed it on its former CEO. Our next report offers insight into the Uber files.
The Uber files refer to a 4-month-long investigation based on more than 124,000 confidential documents from the US ride-hailing company that were leaked to Britain's The Guardian newspaper. The files were leaked by Mark McGann, Uber's former chief lobbyist in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. The leaked records contain sensitive emails, iMessages, and WhatsApp conversations between top Uber executives, bureaucrats, and world leaders in nearly 30 countries between 2013 and 2017, a period when Uber expanded aggressively. When Uber's controversial co-founder Travis Kalanick resigned as CEO in June 2017, the company was operating in more than 600 locations. The Guardian made the leaked records available to 180 journalists working with 42 media organizations in 29 countries through the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The data allegedly reveal how the company circumvented the law, misled police and regulators, exploited violence against drivers, and secretly lobbied governments around the world. Whistleblower McGann said he decided to speak out because he believed Uber knowingly flouted laws in dozens of countries and misled people about the economic benefits to drivers of the company's gig economy model. The investigation found that Uber used a so-called kill switch to prevent police and regulators from accessing its sensitive data from its IT systems during raids. The company deployed this tactic at least 12 times in France, the Netherlands, Belgium, India, Hungary, and Romania. During a police raid in Amsterdam, Kalanick personally shot the order to use kill switch ASAP. The Uber files also claim to have found that the company saved millions of dollars in taxes by routing profits through Bermuda and other offshore tax havens. When taxi drivers hit the streets to protest against Uber in France, Kalanick allegedly saw it as an opportunity. Leaked communications suggested that Kalanick had allegedly texted colleagues that violence guarantees success. Leaked documents suggest that Emmanuel Macron, who was then the country's economy minister, secretly helped the company in France, allowing Uber frequent and direct access to him and his staff. In response, a spokesperson for Kalanick said the former CEO never suggested that Uber should take advantage of violence at the expense of driver safety. There has been no shortage of reporting on Uber's mistakes prior to 2017. Thousands of stories have been published, multiple books have been written. There's even been a TV series. Uber said its mistakes prior to 2017 have been widely reported, and that is exactly why the company hired the new CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, to transform every aspect of how Uber operated.
I will achieve, I will fly high. SBI.
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.
In India, Uber started its journey on August 29, 2013 from Bengaluru. And by November 18, 2021, it had marked its presence in 100 cities. Well, that's all we have for you today. We will be back with more news and analysis in our next episode. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.